Most people think premium gas is a scam, a way for the station to squeeze an extra 40 cents a gallon out of you for the same liquid coming out of the same tanker truck that filled the regular pump 20 minutes earlier. And for a long time, those people were right. I believed it too. I'd pull into a Sunoco, look at the 3 buttons, hit the cheap one, and feel a little smug about the guys hitting the expensive one. Then we ran 2 identical engines for 30 days. Same make, same model year, same break-in, same drive cycle, logged to the mile. One drank nothing but 87 octane regular, the other drank nothing but 93 premium. And at the end of 30 days, something broke. But here's the part nobody who argues about this on the internet ever gets right. The thing that broke first wasn't the part you'd bet on. It wasn't a piston. It wasn't a valve. And on one of those 2 engines, the most expensive thing that broke wasn't even metal. I'll get to what broke. Stay with me. Because to understand why it broke, you have to understand why the smug version of me was right for about 20 years, and then quietly became wrong without anyone telling him. Let's go back. Because the belief that premium is a waste of money didn't come from nowhere. It came from being true. Take a 1998 Toyota Camry with the 2.2-liter 4. Take a 2001 Chevy Silverado with the 5.3 V8. Take damn near anything built for the American road between roughly 1985 and 2005 that didn't have the word turbo or supercharged stamped on it. You put premium in those engines and you got nothing. Not a little something. Nothing. Same power, same mileage, same everything, minus the extra money in the gas station's pocket. The owner's manual on that Camry said 87 octane, flat out, and meant it. Pouring 93 in there was like buying the premium ticket for a movie you were going to watch on the same screen anyway. I saw this constantly. Guy comes into the shop convinced his truck runs better on the good stuff. Swears he can feel it. So I'd put it on the scanner, pull the timing data, run it back to back. Regular, premium, regular again. Flatline. The truck didn't care. What he was feeling was the $40 leaving his wallet, and his brain deciding it must have bought something. I never told most of them they were wrong. You don't win that argument. But the data didn't lie. Those engines were built with low compression ratios, big combustion chambers, conservative timing. They were designed by engineers who assumed you'd buy the cheapest gas you could find, and they built around it. There's a whole marketing ghost haunting this too. Back in the leaded fuel days, and right after the switch to unleaded in the mid-70s, premium gas genuinely did clean better and burn cleaner in a lot of cars. The myth that premium is cleaner gas is a fossil from that era. It stuck around in people's heads for 40 years after it stopped being relevant. By the 90s, federal detergent requirements meant even the cheapest gas had to carry a minimum cleaning additive package. So the cleanliness argument was already dead. But the price gap stayed. The buttons stayed. The smug stayed. So if you owned that kind of engine, and a lot of you still do, the math was simple. Buy regular. Save the money. I'd have told you the same thing. Okay, here's where it gets weird. Somewhere around 2010, the engines underneath you started changing, and almost nobody noticed because the badge on the trunk looked the same. Your neighbor's 2009 Honda Accord and his 2023 Honda Accord both say Accord. But the 2009 had a naturally aspirated 2.4-liter 4, making about 177 horsepower. The 2023 has a turbocharged 1.5-liter making more power out of an engine 40% smaller. That is not a small change. That is a completely different machine wearing the same coat. And the reason it happened isn't horsepower. It's regulation. Do the math on what the government did to fuel economy targets over the last 15 years. CAFE standards, the corporate average fuel economy rules, kept ratcheting the required miles per gallon higher and higher. Automakers had 2 ways to hit those numbers. Make cars lighter and slower, which nobody buys, or make smaller engines that produce big engine power. They picked door number 2. Across the entire industry, Ford killed the V8 in half its lineup and gave you the EcoBoost Turbo V6. GM put a 2.7-liter Turbo 4 in a full-size Silverado, an engine smaller than what used to go in a Cavalier, hauling half a ton of truck. Volkswagen and Audi went turbo on nearly everything. BMW dropped naturally aspirated engines almost entirely. To get big power out of a small engine, you do 2 things. You raise the compression ratio, squeezing the air and fuel tighter before you light it, or you force-feed it air with a turbo, cramming more in than the engine could ever suck on its own. Usually both. A 1999 engine ran maybe 9-to-1 compression. A modern turbo direct injection 4 might run 10.5-to-1, and then the turbo stuff's another 15, 20 pounds of boost on top of that. The pressure inside that cylinder at the moment of ignition is in a different universe than what your dad's truck ever saw. And high pressure is exactly the condition that makes cheap gas a problem. This is the thing the badge doesn't tell you. The engine got more sophisticated, more sensitive, more dependent on the fuel doing precisely what it's supposed to do at precisely the right millisecond. And the gas in the cheap tank didn't change at all. So now we have to talk about what octane actually is, because almost everyone, including people who should know better, gets this completely backwards. Octane is not power. Octane is not energy. A gallon of 93 does not contain more horsepower than a gallon of 87 sitting in a can. If anything, the energy content is nearly identical, and in some blends the regular gas has marginally more raw energy. So when a guy tells you premium has more power in it, he's wrong about the mechanism even if he's right about the result. The result is real. The reason is not what he thinks. Octane is a resistance rating. It measures one thing: how hard the fuel is to set off by pressure and heat alone, without a spark. That's it. Higher octane means the fuel can take more squeezing, more heat, more abuse before it lights itself off on its own. Here's why that matters. In a healthy engine, the spark plug fires and a flame front rolls smoothly across the combustion chamber like a wave moving across a pond. Controlled. Even. The pressure builds in a clean curve and pushes the piston down. That's combustion working the way the engineer drew it. Detonation is when that pond doesn't get one clean wave. It's when the heat and pressure in the far corner of the chamber get so intense that the unburned fuel sitting over there spontaneously explodes on its own before the spark's flame front ever reaches it. So now you've got two pressure waves slamming into each other inside a sealed metal can. That collision is the knock. That's the ping or pinging sound the marbles in a coffee can rattle people describe. It's not a sound effect. It's two explosions colliding hard enough to hammer the top of your piston like a ball-peen hammer thousands of times a minute. Think of it like clapping your hands. One smooth clap, that's combustion. Now imagine two people clapping out of sync an inch apart and the shock waves smacking together. That's knock. And it happens because in a high compression, high boost engine, the conditions in that chamber are right on the edge of self-ignition all the time. The only thing keeping the fuel from lighting itself off early is its octane rating. Its resistance. Put 87 in an engine that needs 91 and you've removed the safety margin. The fuel can't take the squeeze. It detonates. Now, an engine from 1995 that started knocking on bad gas would just knock. You'd hear it. It'd rattle under load going up a hill, and over time it would beat itself to death, and that was that. Modern engines don't let it get that far, because somewhere around the late 80s and universally by the mid-90s, every car got a little device screwed into the side of the engine block that changed this whole game. The knock sensor. You won't find most people thinking about this part for a second, but it's the hinge the entire question turns on. A knock sensor is, mechanically, almost stupidly simple. It's a piezoelectric crystal, a little chunk of material that generates a tiny electrical voltage when it's vibrated. They bolt it to the engine block where it can feel the structure-borne vibration of the engine running. Detonation has a specific vibration frequency, a specific signature, different from the normal hum of combustion. Think of it like a guy with his hand flat on the engine who's felt so many engines run that he can feel the difference between a healthy heartbeat and a flutter. The sensor feels for that knock signature. The instant it detects it screams to the computer. It's detonating in there. Do something now. And the computer does. Within milliseconds, the engine control unit pulls back the ignition timing. It fires the spark plug later in the cycle, after the piston is already a little further up, when there's less time for that far corner to cook off on its own. Retarding the timing kills the detonation. The knock stops. The engine is protected. Your pistons survive. That right there is why your modern car running on cheap gas usually doesn't blow up. The knock sensor catches it and the computer babies the engine. It's a brilliant system. It's also exactly why I run regular in my turbo, and it's been fine for years. Crowd thinks they're getting away with it. They are getting away with the catastrophic version. They are not getting away with the version that's quietly costing them. Because retarding the timing isn't free. When the computer pulls timing to stop the knock, it gives up the most efficient burn. Optimal ignition timing is where you make the most power and burn the fuel most completely. The instant the ECU retards away from that point to save the engine, you lose power and you lose efficiency. The fuel doesn't finish burning at the ideal moment. Some of its energy goes out the tailpipe instead of into the piston. The engine is now running in a defensive crouch all day, every mile, protecting itself from the gas you keep feeding it. This is the part the 30-day test made impossible to argue with. We didn't have to guess. We logged it. Both engines, same 2.0-liter turbo 4 out of a common platform, both freshly serviced, identical tires, identical loads, run over the same route. The premium engine, fed 93, held its timing right where the engineers wanted it. The regular engine, Fed 87, spent its entire life on the freeway with the knock sensor chattering, and the computer dialing the timing back under any real load. On the dyno, the 87 engine was down measurably on power, especially up top where boost and cylinder pressure peak. And the mileage. The regular Fed engine averaged a little over 2 miles per gallon worse over the 30 days. Doesn't sound like much. Do the math on it. Say you drive 15,000 miles a year. Say the engine that should get 28 is now getting 25.5 on the cheap gas. That's a few hundred extra gallons burned across the year. At the pump, the gap between regular and premium is real, but it's smaller than people think, and the extra fuel you're burning to make up for the worse mileage eats a big chunk of what you saved by buying cheap. In a lot of cases, it eats all of it. The whole premise of buying regular to save money quietly collapses. You bought the cheaper gallon and then burned more of them to go the same distance, with less power, in an engine that spent the whole time flinching. That's the part most drivers will never figure out, because the gauge doesn't show it to you. You see a low number on the pump and a normal-looking trip computer, and you feel like you won. The win is fiction. Now here's where the manufacturers split, and where you learn something that applies to whatever you drive, not just the engine we tested. Watch the words. Open your owner's manual, or look at the little sticker inside the fuel filler door and find the line about octane. There are exactly 2 words that matter, and they are not interchangeable, and the dealer's not going to walk you through the difference. Premium recommended and premium required. Those are different planets. Honda and Toyota, on a lot of their turbo engines, say recommended. That word is the engineer telling you. This engine is calibrated to make its full rated power on premium, but we built in enough knock protection that it'll run safely on regular, it'll just pull timing and give you less. They've blessed the cheap gas operation. You won't hurt it. You'll just be driving a detuned version of the car you paid for, getting worse mileage. In the name of saving money, you're mostly not saving. Then you've got the other camp. A lot of the German turbo engines, BMW, Audi, the Volkswagen GTI's 2.E, plenty of the performance and luxury stuff, say required. Required means the engineer is telling you something stronger. This engine's compression and boost are set up assuming premium is in the tank. The knock protection is there as a safety net, not as a lifestyle. Run it on regular long enough, under the wrong conditions, and the net doesn't always catch everything. And this is the step almost nobody takes you to, the thing that separates a real answer from a forum argument. The knock sensor and timing retard system was designed to fight detonation, which happens after the spark. There's a second, nastier phenomenon in modern turbocharged direct injection engines that the knock sensor was never built to fully handle, and it didn't even exist as a common problem until these little high-pressure turbo 4s took over the market. It's called low-speed pre-ignition, LSPI. Pre-ignition is the evil twin of detonation. Detonation happens after the plug fires. Pre-ignition happens before it. The fuel-air mix lights itself off early, on its own, while the piston is still coming up before the spark plug has even fired. Now the piston is trying to climb against an explosion that's already pushing back down on it. The pressure spikes go way beyond anything detonation produces. This is the kind of event that doesn't slowly wear an engine out. It cracks a piston ring land. It shatters a spark plug. It can hole a piston in a single event. And because it happens before the spark, the knock sensor and retard system is often a half step behind it. By the time it reacts, the damage can already be done. LSPI loves exactly the conditions cheap gas creates in a small turbo engine. Low RPM, high load, high cylinder pressure, the engine lugging under boost going up a grade or pulling away hard from a light. Throw low-octane fuel into that and you've stacked the deck. This is why this problem barely existed in 2005 and became a real engineering headache by the late 2010s. It's a disease of the modern downsized turbo engine, born from the same regulations that gave us those engines in the first place. And here's the connection nobody draws for you. It's not only about the gas. The oil matters too. The industry figured out that certain oil additive chemistries were actually triggering LSPI events, and they wrote a whole new oil specification to fight it. That's where the newer API SP rating and GM's DEXO standards came from, specifically engineered to resist low-speed pre-ignition. So the guy running cheap gas and whatever bargain oil was on sale in a turbo direct injection engine isn't taking one risk. He's taking 2 at the same time, and they multiply each other. The dealer who changes his oil isn't going to explain that the cheap bulk oil they poured in and the 87 he's burning are working together against his pistons. So now you understand understand the whole machine. The high-compression turbo engine, the regulation that created it, the octane that holds detonation at bay, the knock sensor that retards timing to protect you while quietly stealing your power and your mileage, and the pre-ignition lurking underneath that the safety net doesn't always catch. Which brings us back to the 2 engines and the 30 days. And what broke? The engine-fed premium, at the end of 30 days, was fine. Boringly fine. Made its power, held its timing, returned its rated mileage, came apart at teardown looking like it had a long life ahead of it. Nothing to report. That's the whole point of doing it right. The engine fed 87 the entire time was a different story, and it's a story in 2 parts, because that engine taught us 2 different lessons depending on how you frame the question. If you ask what broke in the catastrophic sense, the answer is the spark plugs went first. We pulled them at the end, and one of them was showing the early damage you see from sustained knock, and a couple of borderline pre-ignition events, the kind of stress the knock sensor fought all month and mostly won and occasionally didn't. Another few thousand miles of that, and we'd have been looking at a ringland, then a piston. The net was holding, but you could see where it had been straining. But the thing that actually broke first, the thing that broke on day 1 and never recovered, was the entire reason somebody buys cheap gas in the first place. The savings. Within the first full tank, the worse mileage and the lost power had already erased the math that made buying regular feel smart. The wallet broke before the spark plug ever did. The driver was paying more, getting less, and aging his engine faster, all while feeling like he'd outsmarted the system at the pump. So the next time you're standing at the pump with 3 buttons in front of you, don't ask which gas is cheaper. Ask which engine you're standing in front of. Read the door. Find the word. If it says required, you already know. If it says recommended, you've got a choice to make. But make it knowing what the cheap button actually costs you, which is almost never what it says on the sign. And if your engine doesn't say either, if it's that honest old low compression workhorse, then go ahead and hit regular and walk away smug. You earned it. That engine doesn't care. The rest of them care. They just can't tell you. They flinch, they pull their timing, they protect themselves, and they let you believe you got away with it. Most people will go their whole lives believing it. You don't have to be one of them.